And you said to survive, it's important to scale. What do you mean by that?
Well, I suppose there can be always new companies coming into the market. So globally, most industries are competitive, and anyone that kind of stands still, it leaves kind of room for competition to enter the market.
In our last podcast, Scott Holder, founder of Los Chicanos Taco, asked us for help scaling his business, an often weather-dependent food truck. Conor Meaney with PwC's scale-up division came to our aid. He warns that scaling is not a business nice to have, but critical if you want to stay competitive.
One barrier for entry of new competitors that we see is to continue to evolve and to continue to grow. Yeah. And that way makes it more difficult to others to catch up and get ahead.
Welcome, Conor. It's very nice to have you on. And you're our expert who was brought in on Scott Holder's request, the founder of Los Chicanos Taco, who his business is interesting, and I'm going to play you the clip.
I mean, one of our biggest challenges, and probably the biggest challenge with any food truck in Ireland, is consistency. It's very weather dependent here, so kind of winter is quite dead, and then it's all go in the summer. So I suppose one area I'm still focusing on is kind of scaling, taking an operation that's very much dependent on you being there and systemizing that and scaling it to allow you to come out and run the business. So, right. I suppose everything I do is dependent on me being there. It's dependent on me driving the truck, me doing everything. But, you can't scale and you can't increase the business when you're in that. So I suppose it's trying to pull you out of the business and systemize it.
So, Conor, what is scaling? What is that when it comes to small businesses?
So every business has a different aspect of scale. So often what we would see is companies would use Ireland as a testing ground, and then they would look to expand abroad into new markets. Obviously, the population in Ireland is quite small compared to other jurisdictions. So often what we would see is companies expanding overseas, expanding into new jurisdictions and basically accessing new markets. But scale can be different for everyone. Scale can mean accessing other local markets in Ireland, or for different industries, it can mean expanding on a global scale and accessing new markets abroad.
For Scott in particular, he was his only permanent staff member, and he felt like in order to scale further, hiring was a big part of that, and being able to grow in a very wet market for a food truck was an important thing for him. Is that a problem that you're finding with a lot of founders in Ireland? Is finding the right people an issue?
Absolutely. It's a challenging aspect for all business in terms of building their team. And there's a few things that we generally say in these contexts. Is one, trying to get the right person. So first of all, determine how much capacity they have for resources. What type of resource do they need? What area do they need? What's going to add the most value? And how is that going to free up the founder's time? And where is the potential return there? We would always say kind of take the time to interview the right candidate, because sometimes if companies are firefighting, they might just say, right, get anyone in and help out. But getting the right person involved could be critical. And as well, there are lots of great government supports out there. So you can look to the local enterprise office, Enterprise Ireland, who all contribute towards the maintenance of employment in the state. So there might be some supports that can subsidise the cost of salaries.
And I mean, Scott, before he even endeavored to do this, put a lot of money into his truck. You heard his full episode. He spent a lot of time building up this truck to properly scale it and afford to get in the right people. How do you go about upping a profit margin like that? Are there steps that he should take to try and get that kind of money in for those kinds of resources? So
in terms of raising capital, obviously having a good business plan in place is important. So it'll be important for investors and for lenders. They'll want to see how the business plans to grow, how they determine getting a return on their investment. So it's important to have a good plan in place which shows kind of the strategy to growth, because ultimately businesses survive through scale and through growing in the market. So having a good business plan out there, having validation in place, so proving the model with customers and that there's a demand for the product, and showing that they have the track record to be able to execute the business plan. They're kind of criteria that we're seeing in the market that companies that are becoming successfully funded would have.
And you said to survive, it's important to scale. What do you mean by that?
Well, I suppose there can be always new companies coming into the market. So globally, most industries are competitive, and anyone that kind of stands still, it leaves kind of room for competition to enter the market. So one barrier for entry of new competitors that we see is to continue to evolve and to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And that way makes it more difficult to others to catch up and get ahead.
Speaking on that evolution of business and adjustments, I'm assuming for your market are also particularly important. For instance, Scott himself began wanting to do a food truck that stops and serves and that kind of thing, and found that it was hard to get people in Dublin to come out, particularly in the rainy season when it kept raining on them, and found he was having more success with events. Is that kind of movement, that kind of adaptability really important for scale, or can you just head on and try and get through?
Absolutely, yeah. The ability to pivot we see is very important, because the best feedback for the market you'll get is from your customers.
Yeah.
And to be able to react and know what's working well, what's not working well, and make things better or make that little adjustment. And it could take a bit of time, could take a bit of resilience, a bit of patience, but that flexibility and adaptability will mean that they can get that right moment, which they can get the stars to align and ultimately get to scale.
Do you find generally that founders struggle a little bit with that adjustment because they go in with a dream? I'm assuming we all go in with that. It should be perfect. This is how it's supposed to look.
Yeah, so I suppose a lot of the successful founders that we'll see, that they'll have a business plan and they'll say from the outset, look, this is what we think that we'll need to do. But they're always flexible in terms of, as they go along the way, they will need to make adjustments in order to execute, and they'll need to react to the market. They'll need to react to their specific circumstances. And they're not, I suppose, married to their idea from the start, and they're reacting to the feedback they're getting from the market and from the various stakeholders.
Now, you mentioned the business plan twice, and I think it's super important that we bring it in. What does a successful business plan look like? Is scalability built into it? Is it like over time?
So the business plan would have a focus on scale. A lot of the business plans that we would see, they'd kind of have a long-term goal, and in terms supported by financial projections as to where they want to get, usually in a 5-year period, and it'll be broken down into small steps, so that they can achieve that goal. So it gives them a bit of direction. Yeah, and it gives them a bit of structure to show that they have an end objective, and how can we break this down to ultimately get to this. For example, if it was a medical device company, they might have a milestone of getting regulatory approval, and then they might go on to the next step. So every industry is kind of different in their goals. Some will have goals of profitability at various different stages, but the plan will give them a bit of direction in terms of how they can go from the current step to the next step.
Okay, and that plan, because I think it's a pretty critical thing, and Lord knows I'm no founder, so teach me, please, Conor. Can you draft that yourself? How important is it to get help to look over that? I mean, not everyone is a business expert. You know, you have a great idea, it could work, but that doesn't mean necessarily you know what you're doing when you're planning.
Well, there's actually a good support offered by Enterprise Ireland, which will subsidise the cost of a business plan, of preparing a detailed business plan and financial projections. Because, like you said, the founders will have details about the product, details about the market, but just articulating it all together, it can actually be time consuming as well as everything else. And obviously they have to focus on running and scaling a business day to day. So like that, there are some supports like that available that can help ease kind of that administrative task for them and free up some time and have their business plan kind of neat in those in that method.
Fast tracked. Well, I mean, that's incredible. That's already a lot of support in Ireland's markets. It's actually very, very impressive. So what are some of the stumbling blocks that are leading to, you know, founders and businesses not succeeding, things that these founders really need to look out for?
Yeah, I suppose they're kind of two primary risks that people associate kind of with startups. Was one being market risk, and two being the execution risk. So market risk, I suppose, would be it could have great technology or whatever the product is, but people mightn't actually come along and buy it. And execution risk is about kind of the founders executing the business plan and executing the idea. So I suppose to validate your market as early as possible is a big thing. And we even see that with companies that are raising funding, that they'll have traction of sales, traction of users. How can they prove that there actually is a demand for this product? And then having the execution risk in terms of being able to really show how you're going to sell the product, how you're going to market it, how you're going to attract users, how you're going to attract customers, how you're going to build up the brand. So having kind of clear methodology on how people will do those things is a difference. And I suppose in Ireland, obviously the challenge is that the pool is quite small compared to other countries. So just being able to access the customers here as they can, and then look to expand where possible into bigger markets.
Okay, so I mean, we're just going to generally touch on Scott's case. What are the figures he might need to look into getting? Is it how many tacos I can sell, how many events I can get to, how much profit I'm making?
I suppose every business would measure their achievements in different ways. For example, you might have a web company that might be measured based on its user base, and that might be the most attractive thing to them. You might have other companies that would be the value of their IP, so how they can develop their intangible assets, what's that going to be worth, and then others will be on sales and multiple of EBITDA. So I suppose it's about kind of looking at their own set of circumstances and seeing, in terms of getting to the end goal that I want to get to in 5 years' time, I suppose what does that look like for me? Does that look a certain amount of users, a certain amount of customers operating in a certain amount of jurisdictions? Is it just pure revenue, pure profitability at the end of the bottom line? So it's about kind of figuring out what is success in that particular industry and how can that be measured.
Okay, cool. And once you've measured that, now you've got it. You have gotten the funding, assumably, because you've measured that and you've gotten the funding round. Now you need to get the right people. But I think we all know that Ireland has a bit of a brain drain. A lot of our exports are actually our people here. Which means that a lot of your people are leaving, and it's very hard for startups, particularly startups, to retain their skills. You know, you don't want to spend all of that time training someone and then they up and leave you. What is the process for finding a good person for your business? Where should they go?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and it is something that we see a lot, in that people want to attract key talent and they want to retain them. And obviously the challenge with startups is that they mightn't have the same cash resources as, say, a multinational who can pay them increased salaries. So a lot of startups we see put in place effective management incentive plans, which would involve equity remuneration for the founders. So they're able to grow with the business, and their kind of stake and potential remuneration can grow with the business. And the more they contribute, the more kind of equity that they generate. And the idea is when they build, their remuneration and their package builds with them. So a lot of success stories that we've seen in the startup market, a lot of their key resources that come in early on, they'll participate in the equity business under different equity plans and contribute to the growth and get ultimately remunerated.
How well does that really work? Because, I mean, you can't pay the bills with the promises that someone else's startup will work. Do you still need a brave kind of employee for that to work out?
Absolutely. And look, usually there's a hybrid of things. Again, there are good supports to cover salaries in the local enterprise office and stuff like that. And that can help towards bridging the gap, I suppose, with what you can afford to pay a resource versus what they could get elsewhere. I suppose when the people see the potential in the company, they know that there could be a massive exit plan, there could be ultimate method to kind of really realize liquidity on a potential sale of the business, and that could really attract them. Of course, people will have different circumstances, and you'll have some people that might want to be getting on the property ladder and that sort of thing. But we've often found that people with good management incentive plans in place have been able to recruit key talent to help them build their business and reach their goals.
Is it possible I know a lot of founders do things on their own, you know, Scott not being exempt from that. He hits the kitchen, packs the truck, all of that stuff on his own. A lot of the grunt work is done by him. Is it possible to get to a stage where you can actually trust those employees to carry that forward so you can do some of those management tasks? And is that a good idea for a founder at that stage of business to start trusting?
And that's where it comes back to the point in terms of planning out exactly what resource is required. So what is low risk potentially for the founder? What resource can they trust them with? How is that going to free up their time? And how is it going to add value? So a lot of successful founders that we see actually hire people with skills that they don't have.
Yeah.
So there might be developers, for example, and they might hire a salesperson, they might hire a marketing person, that sort of thing. Yeah. So having a diversified team is really important because no one can do everything. So, and everyone has different skills. And the more, I suppose, diversity you have in your team in terms of the skill sets will enable you to grow and scale by touching different aspects of the business that no one can hit alone.
That's interesting. So don't hire what you can do. If you can do it, keep doing it for as long as you can. Seems to be the best approach to it, and get other people who can't do what you can do so you don't struggle.
Absolutely. If someone has a really strong particular skill, as opposed to trying to, I suppose, take away from that and focus time elsewhere, if you can hire someone else who also has a different really good skill, then that makes a compatible team and that everyone is adding value in different ways.
And what's the success looking like in Ireland for these startups looking to scale?
I suppose success is different for everyone. So some companies will want to scale up to the point that they can survive and they can financially every year, they're not worried about getting funding in to support their business. Their business can survive itself. Success for other people will be to exit, so to scale up their business and to exit out. And for others, it'll be to get to a stage where they can raise enough funds that they can really expand and become a key global player and stay on in the business. So success has a different meaning to everyone, but it usually results in happy faces at the end of the day.
Yeah, we all want those happy faces. I don't think anyone wants to go into business and just think, oh, that was a total nightmare. But we've heard from a couple of founders that scaling is particularly hard. What is it in this market that makes it hard with all of those additional resources? Why are they struggling?
So there are challenges. They're kind of global challenges now with kind of inflation on costs. There's more and more competition. Thankfully, the world is becoming more pro startups and there's more innovation and ideas coming into the market, and it can be a tough spot, especially when you're on your own or you have a small kind of founder team. You haven't many resources. You're doing a lot of the work, a lot of the heavy lift yourself. But I suppose that's what makes founders so special, that they have kind of the courage to go out and pursue their startup venture and really try build something and climb up. And that's why they're such an important aspect of the economy.
Speaking of that courage, it's a huge element. I'm wondering now, Ireland is attracting huge players. I mean, yourself, you're from PwC. That's a huge global player. Does that make it harder for local startups, those smaller businesses, to break into a market? Are they a boon for startups, or are they a bit of a challenge?
Well, we see a lot of talent now wanting to be in the startup world, so wanting to build their own business, have their own ideas and want to come out and pursue them. And there are supports out there that are encouraging that.
A lot of them coming from those big businesses.
Yeah, and even chatting to some universities recently, they're all kind of strongly trying to push entrepreneurship into their colleges through different kind of events and even through different modules. And they're kind of building a mindset amongst people now that people kind of want to come on and be entrepreneurs and to lead a business and come up with the next idea. And people are becoming more innovative. So I think the culture is there that now people can see what can be done. Obviously, there's some success stories in Ireland and stuff like that. And people see that as they're growing up and stuff and think, geez, I'd love to run a business someday. So we think the culture is kind of changing that way and becoming more entrepreneurial than it has been, thankfully.
I think it definitely is. If I'm thinking of my age group, and I have to be that one, I am under 30. So that's interesting. But people seem less interested in that 9 to 5 post. Is that, and I mean, we're encouraging it, like you just said, there is such a huge push towards it. I read somewhere that most of Ireland's businesses are under 10 employees. What is the boon really of having 1,000 teeny tiny startups all scattered out your economy? Are we looking for big global players to come out of these startups eventually, or are small scale businesses really key for this economy?
Yeah, small scale businesses are critical to the economy, and that's why there's such support in place for them, and that's why the likes of Enterprise Ireland and local enterprise offices and stuff are supporting it. They create and maintain employment in the state. When they expand abroad, they create a lot of kind of jobs in Ireland. They compete with other players. They attract different people into the market. So it is, and it also provides support to the rural economy and stuff like that. So as well as just kind of in Dublin where a lot of the key corporations are. So yeah, we see them as a pivotal part of the economy. And that's why we see the growing support and encouragement for more and more entrepreneurs to come into the market.
Are they filling a really key gap? What is that gap? I mean, surely it's easier to have one business license for 300 people than, what is the key gap that they fill in terms of providing, I don't know.
Well, I suppose Ireland would be fortunate that it would have had a lot of foreign direct investment.
Yeah.
And
huge amounts recently.
Huge amount. And you walk through the city and you see large multinational corporations on every cornerstone. But I suppose the startups in Ireland are helping the economy become as self-sustainable as possible.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that you have Irish Indigenous businesses and they're kind of more and more founders coming into the market and they're bringing up Irish companies and those companies hopefully can grow to an extent to compete with some of the larger players and makes Ireland more competitive and more attractive as a location for people. And like you touched on earlier on in terms of talent, to retain the talent, and the talent can see, well, if I stay here, I can come up for this business. This is the opportunity that I have. So there's a massive kind of contribution to the overall economy that way.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a great thing. And this is what I love about PwC is that you guys are always so willing to offer your time to help small businesses, to help media houses, to help people truly understand their economy and how things are operating around them. Is there any guidance you can give as a PwC expert for the likes of people like Scott, those founders looking to scale? Where should they go? Where should they be looking? What portals are available that they may not be aware of right now and really ought to be? I know you mentioned Enterprise Ireland quite a bit. I think they are a key cornerstone for every entrepreneur to visit at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So from our perspective, so we're part of the PwC private team and we'd support a wide range of founders and businesses, from individuals to early stage startups right up to mature SMEs, large corporates and private equity. And we're always happy to have a conversation with any founder over a cup of coffee or otherwise. They can get me personally through LinkedIn.
How much do you charge them, Conor?
No, we're happy to catch up informally.
Oh,
sort
wow,
of
that's
way.
fantastic.
And, we like to support the industry and that sort of thing wherever way we can. So.
And you were saying you're on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn as well, yeah. So, and then conor.meaney@pwc.com. But yeah, no, it's not a case of charges coming in, Paige, or anything like that. We're just we love the space. We like to touch base and see all the impressive talent that's coming through the door. So we're always happy to meet with someone if they have any questions. Always happy to engage.
Well, I think that's a key point for us. So if anyone is out there, like the likes of Scott, people like Conor, people are like Enterprise Ireland, these people like Conor's co-workers at PwC are available to chat to you informally, give you some guidance, show you some portals. Don't miss out on hitting them up. Don't miss out on asking questions if you don't know the answers. And when you're scaling, take Conor's advice and scale out of your comfort zone, scale for things that you don't know how to do, and begin there and branch out. I think that's some really great advice. Conor, do you have anything to add that I haven't touched on that scaling founders need to know? I
suppose just generally what we'd see is, I suppose, just having the right technology, having the right people, having the product market fit, and then just being aware of your competitors and what's your unique selling point and how you can differentiate from themselves. And like we spoke about earlier, I suppose having a plan in place, but the ability to pivot and adaptability.
I love that. It sounds like we covered it all. Make sure you can pivot. Make sure you've got that plan set up. Make sure it's great, solidly set, and you know where you're going, but you're not afraid of change. I love it. Thank you so much for coming in, Conor. Thank you so much for your help.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. It's been great. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Found It, a production of Factory 44, Ireland's on-demand creative studio based in the heart of Dublin. Found It is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you stream your podcasts. If you like the show, please take a second to subscribe for more episodes and join the conversation on our socials at Factory 44 Studio. If you're looking to record a podcast or are interested in becoming a member of Factory 44, book a call on our website at www.factory44.io.